The Time Traveler's Warning. Major Sarah Dalton had seen her share of classified briefings, but nothing like this. Seated in a dimly lit interrogation room at a military black site in Nevada, she stared at the man across from her. Dr. Elias Carter, as he called himself, wore a tattered jumpsuit with no identification, and his wild eyes darted between her and the one-way mirror. "You're wasting time," Carter said, voice urgent. "The invasion begins in 72 hours. Dalton kept her face unreadable. "You expect me to believe you traveled from 2125 to warn us about an alien invasion?" Carter leaned forward. "You don't have to believe me. Just listen." She folded her arms, nodding for him to continue. "The Zephyr Dominion," Carter said, "a war-hungry species has been moving through the galaxy for centuries. Earth is next. They don't negotiate. They don't enslave. They consume." Dalton felt a prickle of unease, but didn't show it. "And you know this because—" "Because of my timeline we lost," Carter said. His eyes darkened. "You lost. America fell first. The rest of the world followed. I came back to stop it." Dalton tapped her fingers on the metal table. "All right, let's say I believe you. Where's your proof?" Carter exhaled sharply and reached into his jumpsuit pocket. The guards tensed, but he only pulled out a small metallic sphere. He rolled it onto the table, and instantly it flickered to life, projecting a three-dimensional display of Earth's orbit. Red markers blinked above the planet. "Their fleet arrives in 3 days. First strikes will be Washington, D.C., Beijing, Moscow, and London." He looked her dead in the eye. "Millions will die before you even have a chance to fight back." Dalton felt a slow, cold dread settle over her. This was too detailed, too precise. She turned to the two-way mirror. "Get the general." Before she could say more, the door burst open. 2 military police officers stormed in. "Dr. Carter, you're being transferred," one of them barked. Carter's face twisted in frustration. "No, you need to listen. The invasion is just the beginning." He turned to Dalton, his voice urgent. "Your country isn't just going to lose to aliens. It's going to tear itself apart from the inside." Dalton stood, fists clenched. "What do you mean?" But before he could answer, the guards yanked him from the chair and began dragging him away. "I can stop it," Carter yelled as they hauled him through the doorway. "I know how to fight them. I know what happens next. America won't survive unless you." The door slammed shut, cutting him off. Dalton remained frozen, staring at the empty chair. A chill ran down her spine. Because if what he said was true, humanity only had 72 hours left. War of the Worlds begins. The world ended at exactly 3:42 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Major Sarah Dalton stood in the underground command center of Cheyenne Mountain, staring at the massive digital display. The U.S. Space Surveillance Network had picked them up first. Hundreds of massive, unidentified objects entering Earth's orbit. Then, the signals went dark. No transmissions. No demands. No negotiations. Just war. Dalton's stomach clenched as General Harris barked orders. "Give me NORAD. I want every missile battery on standby." Before the operators could respond, the first strikes came. Washington, D.C., Moscow, Beijing, London. All 4 cities erupted into towering firestorms as orbital bombardments rained from the sky. The live satellite feeds cut to static, but not before capturing the impossible. Massive black spires descending from the clouds like harbingers of death. Dalton barely registered Harris's voice through the chaos. "They took out our nuclear response." The general's face was ashen. "We're blind. We're defenseless." Dalton's pulse pounded. Carter had been right, and they had locked him away. She turned and sprinted toward the exit. If there was any chance of survival, they needed Carter. "Now!" Underscore, 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 underscore. Black Site Echo 0600 hours. The security at the classified Black Site was crumbling, guards abandoning their posts, panic spreading through the ranks. Dalton had no clearance to be there, but it didn't matter. She forced her way in, flashing her badge at anyone who dared question her. When she reached cell 17, Carter was already waiting, shackled to a steel table, looking more furious than frightened. "I told you," he snapped. "Now do you believe me?" Dalton grabbed the keys off the wall and unlocked his restraints. "We don't have time for this. You said you knew how to stop them." Carter rubbed his wrists. "Not stop. Fight." Dalton frowned. "What's the difference?" Carter gave her a grim smile. "One's impossible. The other? A goddamn miracle. Underscore. Underscore. Resistance begins. 1,400 hours. Carter led Dalton deep into an abandoned military bunker in the Colorado Rockies, revealing a hidden chamber filled with old, forgotten tech. "This," he said, pulling back a tarp, "is the key to fighting them." Dalton's eyes widened. Underneath lay blueprints and schematics, weapon designs decades ahead of anything on Earth. "Where did this come from?" she asked. Carter smirked. "The future." Dalton clenched her fists. The Zypher had the upper hand now, but they'd made one fatal mistake. They underestimated humanity, and humanity had 72 hours to prove them wrong. The fall of America. The United States of America ceased to exist at exactly 12:17 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Major Sarah Dalton watched from the underground command bunker as the live feeds came in. New York engulfed in flames, Chicago reduced to rubble, and Los Angeles overrun by alien war machines. But the Zypher weren't the only enemy. America was tearing itself apart. The Great Betrayal, 48 hours after invasion. "The president is dead," Carter said grimly. "So, is most of the Joint Chiefs." "This was planned, Dalton. The Zypher didn't just invade. They had help." Dalton didn't want to believe it. But the reports flooding in confirmed the nightmare. Entire U.S. military divisions had defected. A rogue faction, led by high-ranking generals, surrendered to the Zypher. In exchange for power, they betrayed their own people, handing over military bases, turning American cities into battlegrounds. Carter paced. This was always part of the plan. The Zypher knew they didn't need to fight a united Earth. Just America. Because if America fell, the rest of the world would follow. Dalton clenched her fists. "What do we do?" Carter met her gaze. "We disappear. The death of a nation, 72 hours after invasion." The White House lay in ruins. The Capitol was nothing but ash. The Pentagon had been vaporized in the first wave. Across the country, chaos reigned. Survivors turned on each other. Food supplies collapsed. Communication networks went down. The Zypher had done more than attack America. They had broken it. Dalton and Carter barely escaped Colorado before the rogue U.S. military took over the bunker. "They're rounding up survivors," Carter said as they drove through the desolate remains of Denver. "Killing anyone who resists. The Zypher don't need to enslave us. We're doing it to ourselves." Dalton gritted her teeth. "Then we need to fight back." Carter turned to her, a new resolve in his eyes. "Not yet. We need to find the real weapon." Dalton frowned. "What weapon?" Carter took a deep breath. "The one that can win this war. The hidden secret, 96 hours after invasion. Beneath the frozen wastelands of Antarctica, hidden deep below the ice, lay something older than recorded history." As their small resistance group set course for the South Pole, Carter finally told Dalton the truth. "The Zypher aren't our first enemy," he said. "They fought humans before, and we won." Dalton's blood ran cold. "That's impossible." Carter shook his head. "Not impossible. Forgotten." He turned to face her. "Beneath Antarctica, buried under miles of ice, is humanity's last hope." Dalton exhaled, gripping her rifle. America was gone. The world was next. But this war wasn't over. Not yet. Humanity's last stand. The ice stretched endlessly before them, an unbroken wasteland of white. Beneath the howling Antarctic winds, Major Sarah Dalton and her dwindling group of survivors followed Dr. Elias Carter toward what he claimed was humanity's last hope. Dalton's breath misted in the freezing air. Tell me again why we're here. Carter didn't slow his pace. Because the last time the Zephyr tried to conquer Earth, they failed. And the reason is buried beneath us. Dalton adjusted the rifle on her shoulder, glancing at the 6 soldiers trudging behind her. The world had fallen apart, America was gone, and all they had left was Carter's insane plan. But at this point, insane was better than dead. The ancient vault. They reached the site by nightfall. A colossal structure of black metal, half buried in the ice. The vault doors were covered in strange, unreadable glyphs. Not alien. Human. Carter wiped frost from the metal. This was built thousands of years ago, before our history even began. He turned to Dalton. We were never alone in the universe. The Zephyr fought us before and lost. Dalton narrowed her eyes. Then why don't we remember? Carter's expression darkened. Because they erased us. They nearly wiped out early humanity. The survivors hid their greatest weapon here, sealing it away. He gestured to the entrance. Now we wake it up. The final weapon. Inside, the vault pulsed with energy, machinery humming to life as Carter activated a console. Giant metallic war machines lined the walls, sleek, human-built exosuits, decades beyond modern Earth's technology. Dalton ran a hand over the cold steel armor. These were designed to fight them. Carter nodded. And win. He pointed to the largest machine, a towering mech built for war. This is the Titan-class battle unit. With this, we can fight back. Dalton turned to her squad. Gear up. The battle for Earth wasn't over. Not yet. The final battle. By the time they returned, the Zephyr mothership loomed over the ruins of New York. Humanity's last resistance forces were barely holding out. Dalton's squad dropped from the sky, the ancient war machines humming with power. The first Zephyr walkers turned toward them, then exploded under a barrage of plasma fire. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Dalton's Titan-class mech slammed into the enemy ranks, tearing through Zephyr war machines with brutal precision. The alien overlords had expected surrender. Instead, they got hell. Carter's voice crackled through the comms. We've got one shot at this. The mothership's core, take it out. Dalton gritted her teeth and charged. The Zephyr had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay for it. Epilogue. A new dawn. The Zephyr mothership burned, crashing into the Atlantic. Their forces were broken. Humanity had survived. Dalton stood atop the ruins of the battlefield, looking toward the rising sun. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. Humanity would never kneel.